I have your attention. The reason we give you finger foods is it's supposed to make you more docile. So I'm going to turn the program over to Peggy Ellison. She'll be asking the questions. And then those that respond have 3 minutes. And David Lehman will be there to time your response. So Peggy, if you want to start.
Okay, this is for the county commissioners. I guess each one of you need to answer this. I better put my glasses on. What is your plan for expansion at the new high school should we exceed 1,200 students before the loan is paid for?
Not everybody at once. I need somebody to start talking so I can chart this time.
I'll go ahead, I'll go first.
All right.
Well, the reason for 1,200 students, the fact is that most high schools are seeing in urban areas are seeing a decline in students. We are seeing an increase in population in Macon County, but that's due, most of them, I just showing these ladies here, we're ranked number 7th in the state for people 65-year-old and older. In other words, there's 93 counties that have less people 65-year-older than Macon County. So we think 1,200 students is a good number. If we overbuild now, we can always add to the plans. As you'll see, the new plans coming through, we just authorized for the architect to go ahead and start the plans. And like he presented in his presentation, that there will be provisions to add on if we need to. We found that when we built grammar schools, and Kevin was a commissioner, we built 3 new schools, and we talked about the very same thing. And now we're talking about a K school in Highlands and preschool in Highlands. And so we think 1,200 students is going to be more than enough. That's coming from Dr. Baldwin and the staff and the Board of Education, who really look at the numbers. But if you look statewide, especially in our region at high schools, you'll see that number is not increasing. It's pretty well docile. So Mr. Shields can certainly answer more. I was liaison to the school board for 15 years. And Mr. Shields came on. Me and Jim Davis were liaison for many years, and we went through the studies of population. So we think 1,200 is about right. We hope that we can maintain 1,200 is what our hope is. So, but Mr. Shields will know certainly more about that than anybody here.
This is the type of business that you're in now. You have to trust the architects. We went through the process of selecting our architects, and LS3P was the ones we chose. A fellow called Mr. Boney, he's the one that gives us information. On a sheet of paper that I have not in front of me, he gave the information to the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, and they came back with a formula of 1,200, and that's what we went with at that time. And you're welcome to come in late October. We'll have the schematic phase of the Franklin High School on the new campus, plus the athletic area. And would be wonderful if you could come and see that, how it's going to be in a schematic standpoint. I've seen the questions. I've had them emailed to me. I've read them in the paper. But the trust you have to put in an architect, then through the experience of the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, that's what we stayed with.
I don't know if you want the rest of us to elaborate on that. I mean, I think they covered most of what the architects recently said at the county commission meeting, is that, and the architect specifically said that if we need to add, we design this building that if you go over your capacity of 1,200, we can add on to it. And my understanding is that they did look at the data for the last 10 years to see what the trend was of how many new students were added each year, and there's about a 200 student cushion with the current plan that they're developing right now. So it seems adequate, and for some reason, a lot more younger people, and we have a lot more development with young families, then we'd have to add on.
One thing I'd like to add to that too, if I may, is the curriculum for the high school is now expanding. We have the STEM program that we have for science, technology, English, and mathematics. We've got CTE courses. We've got a lot of other courses that we're offering, and so it takes space. And a lot of these courses require higher level technology, which we do a good job. Our system is it's increasing as we go on, and we can't see that we need to wait another so many years before we address that again, because it is very expensive. So what we're trying to do is look at the entire picture.
Well, based on that, I'd say I'll answer that more as a citizen. I have to say I don't feel like the citizens have enough information, to be honest with you, with everything that's going on with the building of this new high school. Personally, I do feel like we do need a new high school. However, what I question is how it's being done, myself personally. I don't know that the citizens are fully aware of the amount of money that it's going to end up costing in the long run to do the project. And if I were to look at it just from a business standpoint, I feel like to go about it in financing, which is going to cost, the projected cost is $118 million. Why finance $118 million? Because at the end of all of it, you're going to end up paying $245 million. I don't believe the citizens are fully aware of that either. It's a lot of money for a high school, right? So we have if I understand this correctly, there's a fund balance right now with over $30 million in that balance, okay? Why not take, say, $15 million of that? Start the project, pay it cash, get approved for the loan, but don't draw on it yet, so that way we're not paying interest on the full $118 million to start with. It'll take about, $15 million can carry you through maybe about a year and a half or 2 years. We don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of years. We don't know what other money's going to come in. We don't know about grant writers. As a matter of fact, we should already have a professional grant writer so that it can help with funding these kind of projects, rather than just going straight to the citizens' pockets and they get hit every citizen the way that it's going to. So as a citizen myself, I'm in favor for a new high school, but I just question the way that it's being done right now, and the timing of it for that matter as well. Because if you look at it, Josh Young brought this up 2 years ago in an awesome economy. It got shot down. Now 2 years later, we're in an economy that's going downhill. Now we're making a decision to do this. Now, how long have we known that we needed a new high school? So why the rush to do it right now the way that we're doing it? I think there's a better way of doing it. Again, I am for the high school, but I just think that we can figure out a better way of doing it.
I don't know that I can add much more to that, except for the, when I was on the planning board, I was tasked, or we were tasked as a board to look for land, 50 acres, around 50 acres. We found a few parcels, and from that point on, I left the planning board and where it's at. But this is an election year. I do some building. It is the increased cost to build anything now, and to try. I feel, as a citizen, taxpayer, family man, yes, I would love for our kids to have a brand new school. I'd love for the sheriff to have a new sheriff's department and everything else. But folks, it's $245 million is what is projected in a 20-year loan. That's a lot of money. 65 years and older. There's a lot of retired folks here. My mother being one of them. She barely can survive now if it wasn't for me and my sister and my brother to take care of her mother. She couldn't survive. We have to be mindful through this whole process. Conservative leadership, the timing it's tough times. I mean, we're in a recession. Building costs 200% up. People are not struggling in the building industry to have work. I built the produce stand in 2012 in down economy. OSB board was $3 a sheet. How much is it today? I was asked why in the world you would start a new business in the worst economy we've had since the Great Depression. That's why people were starving. In 2012, 2008 economy, people were, the concrete companies were, they were in a bidding war to pour this concrete at the produce stand.
So during this poor economy that they're all talking about, that we're just in desperate times, our values in Macon County just went from total values in the past 2 years, it went from $7.1 billion to almost $13 billion. That's where this poor economy in Macon County is. We've been good stewards of your money. We do have a strong fund balance. That's our seed corn. You spend the seed corn, you're not going to have nothing to plant. We protected that fund balance. Let's give you an example, Peach Creek. When the disaster at Peach Creek happened, we had to come up with $11 million. It took 12 years for the federal government to pay us back. If we hadn't had that money to assist during that disaster, that's what the fund balance is for. You don't spend your fund balance unless you just really have to. And this took years. What the law says, you have to maintain 20% of your fund balance of your budget. You have to maintain 20% of your budget. That's about $12 million to Macon County. We have to have in the bank ready. Plus you got your debt service loans. If you look at our debt chart in Macon County, we're going to peak out from our new schools that we've built already, and we're going to start coming down. And when you hear the word $248 million, that's nothing but to scare you to death. That's not what it's going to be. We don't know what it's going to be. We know the initial cost is estimated at $118 million. We've applied for the school resource money. We got turned down the first time. We're applying again next week for the second go around. The counties are rated in tiers. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. There's 40 Tier 1 counties, 40 Tier 2 counties, 20 Tier 3 counties. Macon County was a Tier 3 until all of us went to lobbying, and including Mr. Corbin, to reduce a rural county to a Tier 2. We're barely under a Tier 3. And what does that mean? It means we very, very seldom get anything when it comes to grant money. If you're a Tier 1 county, they get a lot of things, grant money and such. We're a high Tier 2. And when they look at this, we had this discussion in Concord with the chairman of the lottery about how we thought it was not fair. With the tier system. So there's a lot of ifs and buts. So when you hear 200-something million with interest and all, you need to have Lori here, our finance officer, to explain that to you. I don't think there's no finance officers on this panel. I'm not.
Well, I would like
But I can read a budget. And so when you hear about spending fund balance, be very, very careful, because it took years and years to build that fund balance up. I know in 2008 we had to go into fund balance and take money out of that to keep her from having to raise taxes because of during that recession, which was a real recession. We don't know if there's a recession there or not.
So that information,
not. So
the information is not correct on what it's going to take to finance that $118 million in the long run, or what it's going
we
to
don't
cost.
know. We don't know what the finance. We don't know what the rate will be. We don't know none of that.
He presented that.
It was presented at the
He
meeting.
presented at the meeting. It said at 5%, 20 years, we're looking at a $245
That's
million.
right. If we finance it all, if you finance 100%, we're hoping that that's not going to happen. We're hoping that with Kevin's help and the legislature's help, we asked for 50 million. That was the max, right, Kevin? And most counties are getting 10 to 12.
So if we don't get the grant from the state, we're not going to move forward with the school. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, no, that ain't what I'm saying. I'm all for the high school.
Well, I didn't say I was against the high school, but we got to pay for it.
Yeah, well, that's where you can talk about the quarter-cent sales tax then.
Okay?
A quarter-cent sales tax will be on the ballot, on the referendum. A quarter-cent, that's point, it's not a quarter. Thanks to this gentleman right here, we made that very clear. It's not a quarter, it's 0.25. But you pay for that anyway, probably in all purchases less than $10, you're already paying 7% taxes. And that money goes straight to the state for Kevin and them boys to spend. So the quarter-cent sales tax referendum, as commissioners, we're not allowed as a board, and you on the referendum, you won't see it's for schools, that's against the state statute. What you will see, and you'll hear from this board, that we want to earmark that for debt service. If we had it this year, it would be about $2 million. The quarter-cent sales tax would be about $2 million. If there's such thing as a fire tax, it would be a sales tax, because we get all of our people coming and going. Everybody that comes and spends money in Macon County contributes to our school system that way.
So within that suggestion, I'm not saying to spend the entire fund balance. That's not what I said at all. I already understand that you got to maintain 20%. However, what I'm saying is to not finance a full 118 million, so that in the long run, we're not paying 245 million on it. And to say that we don't know that, it was presented at that meeting where you had the Board of Commissioners and the school board. Okay, that's what was presented.
That was
118 million, and if you finance it at 5%, the long run, you end up paying 245 million. Okay, that's the information that was given. Now, if that information is not accurate, then that goes back to my point of the fact that the citizens don't have enough information about this whole project.
You tell the citizens the worst case scenario. That's the worst case scenario.
In the 118 million, there's a lot of contingency in that as well. So that's not a definitive number that we're spending 118 million, and we can work with the architects too to get something that we really feel like we can afford. I mean, I hear what Danny and John are both saying. I mean, we want to have something that people in Macon County can afford. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, yeah, we're spending 118 million, we're financing it at 5% over a 20-year period, and we're going to pay that. Let's see what we can actually get done at the end of the day. I mean, that is worst case scenario, like Mr. Beal said. But there's still a lot more to be worked out, so I think we're up here pontificating on a lot of facts that aren't on the table yet. So, next question.
Yeah. Next question.
Hey, Tom, he got back on the car for you. Did you see that? So can we grow students or not? Okay. No.
Okay, our next question, I think, will have to be for the Senate candidates, because I think the commissioners cannot do, I think they've done all they can do. There are currently more residents than Frontier switches, phone lines, no 911 service. People can't get landlines or repairs with Frontier. What can we do? What can you do?
If re-elected, Senator, what can you do?
Yeah, let me answer that. Talk about constituent calls. I would say we get more calls about questions about DOT. We get calls about taxes. But probably more than anything, we get calls about that right there. And so I completely understand. My office gets the calls. We make a call to Frontier every time we get a call from them. So we're your advocate. You have to understand, there's a difference in government and private enterprise. Frontier is not a government entity. We don't want the government running our phone lines, okay? So they're a private company, so all we can do is encourage them, tell them they're providing poor service. The ones that have called us, and some have been over here, some may be in this room, we've gotten their situations fixed. So you kind of have to handle those one by one. Now the bigger picture is this whole idea of high-speed internet, phone, all that in one line, right? So if you put it with Optimum, which finally we got decent service to our house after asking for 2 years to run it 400 yards. We just, back in, when I first got that, to the house 6 years ago, I ran a bill with Josh Dobson, who is now our labor secretary. He and I ran a bill called the Fiber Act. What that would do is allow cities and counties, it was endorsed by the county commissioners, it was endorsed by the school board association, it was endorsed by the League of Municipalities. What that would do is to let counties and cities build out the infrastructure, not provide the internet service, we don't want that, then let private companies hook on and charge it. Well, guess what? The big companies, AT&T, Spectrum, they fought us. I mean, they followed me around throwing daggers in my back because they did. And I asked them, how many folks do you have in Macon County hooked up? None. But they don't want small companies in the business. So what we got out of that, we started asking for money. But Josh and I got out of that the great grants. That's when the great grants started, if you look. And we funded those at $15 million a year up until this year. And we used some federal dollars and we used some surplus dollars that we have from the state. Thank God we had a surplus after COVID was over. and we put 400 million. So we went from 15 million to 400 million. So literally, every company that's asking for a grant right now is getting it. So and I had a big meeting, a lot of you people were there. We had a big meeting back in March, I believe it was. And I brought together the internet providers, public, and we talk about these grants, and then folks in the state. And so if we can get them to apply for these grants and get them, the money's there to run it. I'm talking over here. I'm talking Hanging Dog in Cherokee County. They're hooking them up as we speak. So.
Okay. Go ahead. So, have any of y'all been on a virtual meeting in the past 2 years? So, don't you love it when the screen freezes and then the audio gets jumbled to what they're saying? And so then you get on your cell phone to try to log in with the audio meeting. Beep, beep, beep. Call failed. So then you go to the landline.
That's Frontier.
That's right.
So, in short, our communications infrastructure is falling short. And so what we need to do is competition. We need to allow our local governments the freedom to look for solutions and implement the solutions which are best for our areas.
We had an opportunity to meet with the governor last Monday in Cherokee, and about broadband, about different things. And the fact is, we're penalized because of where we live. Kevin will tell you that, somebody that's been in Raleigh. We're penalized because of where we live. And these other companies, you ask for competition. There's nobody jumping at the bit to be the competition, because this is not like running it in Orange County or Durham County or in the sand hills of North Carolina. You dig a ditch in Nantahala and Highlands, you're going to hit a rock. Guarantee you. So what our message to the governor was, regardless of your zip code, we should have the same opportunity. There's places in our county we know we'll never have internet. There's some of these hollers you can't get internet to. We know that. But just don't do the low-hanging fruit. That's what we're worried about. These grants, we had to put up, I think it was $150,000 just to get bids to come in. And Kevin said, you can put them in the same room, but they won't talk to each other. They're afraid they might disclose something. So broadband it's not a luxury anymore. It is a have to. It is a needed, and communications. And as far as Frontier, they're the most complained against in the Utilities Commission in Raleigh. They're the most complained about company in the state. And you know, their stock got down to what, 20 cents a share or something, nothing. And so we don't know how it's working now, and it's not the employees that work in Macon County and work in Nantahala and Cherokee County. Those are good folks and local folks, but they're just employees, and they'll do everything they can to help. And we field a lot of calls, just like the county does, to help folks. So we understand that there's problems, but you also need to know that when in Kevin's business in Raleigh, there's so many lobbyists on the communications, they have to tag each other to keep from lobbying one another. So it's about money. When everything boils down, it's about the money. So hopefully with this $400 million, the Southwest Commission is very involved in that. So hopefully we'll do pretty well.
Since the commissioners went back and forth, can we have one more shot at this?
Sure.
Quick, all right. So competition's right, I will agree with that. One of the problems is getting people to do it. You can't write a law that makes AT&T come to Macon County and hook people up. Yes, I mean,
you could bust up a monopoly.
Well, agreed. But I'm saying there's no way, I would never sign on to a bill that forced a company to go, or your government's interfering in private business then. So that's not going to happen. I tried to run a bill that would let the counties and cities do that. The big providers didn't like that. And as Ronnie says, they've got lobbyists that follow me around with knives. But we got the great grants out of that. But what I'm saying, we've got $400 million that's there. Is that enough to hook up 100% of North Carolina? No, but it's pretty close. I'm telling you, we were moving it. Think about moving, your speed is 15 million. 15 million. Now the speed's 400 million. How many times is that, mathematician? That's a lot. That's how much faster we're moving. This is today. I wrote 7 letters on my Senate stationery in the past 2 weeks for applications for high-speed internet. We just got one in Clay County. You probably read in the paper. It was $5 million hooking up 2,000 customers. It's costing them $3,500 a drop to get to those people. That's why the companies don't do it. It's not profitable. So we're using state money to subsidize that, if you would. I hate that term, but we're giving these companies an incentive. We're having more and more companies start to bid that we've never heard of, that are new startup. I talked to a new startup company in Western North Carolina just the other day that's interested in doing these. So getting these people to do it, having meetings like I had a couple of months ago just to let people know what's going on, but the money is there. We've done our job to provide the money. Now we have to get the providers to do the job and get people hooked up.
Is that going to be fiber or coax or wireless? Do we know, or a mix?
It's fiber as far as I know. Paul, you may know more than I do.
We're coming down scaling with fiber now.
I think most of it's fiber.
It's coming to Octo.
They're hooking up, it's about the speed. Their speed, if you know anything about the internet, but it's 200 megabits per second or more, and most people, these new hookups are getting a gigabyte, which is 1,000 megabytes per second. You talk about fast, and that's what we're getting. And Western North Carolina's we got the Balsam West Loop, so we've got the fastest internet in the world. We just don't have it out to people, and that's where we got the money out there to do it. We just get the providers to bid and do the work.
What I would add is it John, right? So John, you mentioned about your mother and how she's getting older, and you care a lot about her, and you want her to be safe. And many of us, we have elderly parents and grandparents too, and we want them to be safe. And so if something goes wrong, we want the phone to work so that we can call for help. And so, David, you mentioned breaking up a monopoly. If the choice is between supporting a greedy corporation versus looking out for the safety of your mom, I'm going with your mom. So get cracking and vote for McCracken.
But let me say one other thing. Being on the broadband committee, thanks to the senator and Mr. Gillespie for doing a lot of the great grants movement. But I've got a map. I don't have it with me, and it shows where Balsam West is going to be working. But here's your problem over here. You're involved in a charter, meaning they are federal. And they got the bid over here. Matter of fact, they got 63% of Macon County. The worst thing in the world for you. They're federal. They got the bid. They do not have to come and report to the county commissioners. We've asked them to come and talk to us. What is your plan? And their plan, they can take a lick and it not hurt them. Are you familiar when I say charter? Charter?
Spectrum.
And they've got the Nantahala area over here. And it is going to be tough for them to allow someone else like Balsam West to come in and be a part of this solution. And it's when we got the maps showing who got what, then when he showed us charter and they got the federal bid, the rest of them's coming out of the state, we knew we were in a situation where they may have a situation where they don't have, if you take like Balsam West, when they bid, they may have a 2 or 3 year, but they've got to get it done. But charter, you're looking at 6 to 10 years before they have it done. Then if they choose not to do it, they can take a financial lick, and that piece is still there, not served. We're in that situation right now, and I don't have my map stuff with me. Dwight Hauser, y'all know Dwight, lives down on Choke. we stay connected together, and he's been in some of our meetings over here. HOUSER, Dwight Hauser, and he's been a real advocate for this area over here to get broadband service. And now, if you run into Dwight, when he came, he was coming to one of the meetings here a couple of weeks ago. I believe he had a kidney stone, so he didn't get the last piece of the update. But if you do the research on the charter and what areas they have, you'll see that Nantahala falls in their area.
Macon County has about 68% according, that's hooked. That puts us about middle ways in the counties for the state. But where's that internet at? You take the municipalities of Highlands, which they just now getting the real internet running, getting it. Franklin, we have it out to all the schools. So that encompasses that, but we didn't argue with the data, but we know that in outlying communities, we still have kids that, if you remember, we done the mobile school buses, so they can have internet. And so we rank, and all of us in the 7 far west counties, not necessarily Haywood County, but certainly Jackson County West, we're all in the mid-range. Graham County's down in the 40 percentile. We're about 50% hooked. And in the statewide percentages, we're about medium. The Swain County is nearly at the bottom of the, I think they're 98 in the state. So there again, it goes back to what we're talking about in broadband and phone service.
Affordability.
Yeah, and affordability and the cost. You heard Kevin cost to drop. Where you go to these metropolitan counties, it's almost zero.
Somebody 10 feet.
Yeah, and it's so, and we just want to make sure is this, if we do get this money, the Southwest Commission again is really involved in that, and make sure it's not just a low-hanging fruit. Don't go down these communities where you have houses side by side. In Nantahala, you don't have that. Everybody lives up a road. Everybody's got a driveway and a road. So that's what we really want to look at. We look forward to having that discussion more as we move forward.
Jeff Lee, he's one of our people who's worked with broadband, and he's on our committee, and he sent me an email when we were here before, that Monday night.
A week ago.
A week ago or 2 weeks ago.
We was on one chair, Garrett.
We had a good meeting.
You weren't, I was there.
Oh yeah, there's 3 of us. We stood outside. But anyway, Jeff Lee has been in this arena before. He understands vocabulary. People, you get in this language barrier. It's a foreign language when you're dealing with this stuff. And they can out-talk you. But Jeff Lee, he's on our team now. He emailed me, said, hey, tell the people at Nantahala, don't get antsy or something like that. There may be something coming their way. And I still got it on the email. I was going to share it with you last time, but I didn't bring I got my high dollar phone with me tonight. But Jeff Lee, and if any of you, I say it, want a group of us to come and just talk to you about the internet, we'll come. We'll just sit down right here, and I'll show you what charter got you wrapped up in. And I'll show you where Boston West can be, where they can't be. And it's a book. Thank you.
Next question.
This is for the school board candidates. What is your position on CRT, BLM, gender pronouns, etc. in public schools?
You want us to leave?
Yeah, we're gonna leave. We're done.
Thank y'all for coming.
I think y'all are being recorded, but it's just for the note taking. It's not for, what's that word?
Streaming.
Repercussions.
We've heard that before. School board, jump in here. Let's go.
First on the introduction, so I'm gonna let somebody else go.
Well, I'll start.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Well, CRT is not something that we teach in school. Our children come to school from wonderful families. They come to school to learn. I taught kindergarten one year, and that was one of the most fabulous years I've ever had. When kids come to school and you look at critical race theories and things like that, kids are coming to school to learn. They're not coming to talk about race. They're not coming to talk about what's going on in the world. Kindergarten, they do not understand what happened hundreds of years ago. They want to come and learn to read, they want to write, and they want to play, and they want to be happy. And I think that is a foundation of our school system that we do a very, very good job. Our families, we work with churches, we work with families, we work within the school environment, and in our communities. And that's where I stand with regard to what are we supposed to be teaching our children. That is not a subject area that I know of.
And I'm not a school board member, but I believe your state has not adopted it.
No, they have not.
So, they don't- yeah. First side, I can't get it, Coach.
Can't turn all the way around like an owl.
I agree. As far as I am aware of, CRT is not a curriculum that is mandated by the state.
Flip that little button.
It's on.
It's on.
It might be
Hear
dead.
me? No, it's not. Over here?
You have to hold it real close.
I got it.
There you go.
There you go. But as far as my stance on all of the issues, I believe that our education classrooms for our children need to be protected as an environment conducive to learning, period. When you start introducing things like curriculum or materials that often accompany curriculum like CRT, you start teaching children what to think instead of how to think. And we need to really protect and promote a generation of free thinkers, people who know how to critically think about all of the big issues in life. But when you also have to be careful at what point you introduce that to our children. High school, maybe. College, okay. But your brain is still developing until your mid to late 20s. So you start trying to introduce things like gender pronouns and that sort of thing. At the elementary age, you really are crossing the line that is promoting confusion. You're promoting division. And it's just extremely unhealthy. They are not wired or capable of understanding what's going on, and then you've lost them. And so if our goal as the Macon County School Board is to promote the future and success of our students, then we really need to protect that environment where they're not confused and they're free to learn and they're free to grow. So that's my stance on all of those issues.
So I have two nephews too. So I have 4 kids, if you include my nephews, between kindergarten and sophomore. So I've been active in their school system experience throughout those ages. I have never seen a teacher or had a curriculum that was CRT or gender pronoun introduced. I've never had a teacher introduce those subjects to my kids or nephews. I have had that coming from the outside. So I totally agree with Deirdre. You know, that whole all my life lessons I learned in kindergarten, it's so true. It's so important as parents that we just teach our kids how to love and get along and be patient and kind. And I just think it's important that, and for me, the bar is high. I'm a very moral. My bar is very high for academics. That's why they're there. That's why you're in public schools, to learn. And these are not acronyms, and I could list 6 others, right? You mentioned 3. There's a lot that I've ever had taught from a classroom teacher. And I think our jobs as parents is to navigate how those and when those are introduced and how you as a family decide to explain that, because yes, it comes at them. from so many places. So my more important part is their access to social media, their access to what their friends introduce, their access to what they have available on the school bus and everything everywhere else. That is where I've had to navigate tough waters, right? Those are the places where my kids come home and go, what is this subject? And then we have foundations that we set in our house, and we have honest conversations and try to describe, that might not be us, but that's how, that's our rationale there. It's another reason why I'm just so passionate about parents and families being involved in their schools, involved in their classrooms, involved in PTO. The more that you rally your core values and you introduce those and you support those, then we're a team with our teachers and classes. So I could go on.
Can I add more?
Yes.
Very good.
Do I get a little bit more time? Like 20
Yes,
seconds?
yes, please.
Okay, so, and I just want to add on to that as the school board's responsibility, part of that is supporting the teachers to take those steps to protect their classroom and the learning environment. Because you're exactly right. I mean, my children have heard it, and you can't stop it in today's world. They're going to hear it, and they're going to have questions, and that really is, school education should be a partnership between the schools and the parents and the children. And so part of how to protect that is taking it off of the teacher's responsibility and letting the families handle that. So I just, I want to add that I think it's so important we create a supportive environment for our teachers to be able to do what they need to do to keep it safe in their classroom.
I'm following Deidre is, I agree with both girls wholeheartedly. CRT is not a subject to be taught, and this board, as it stands now, to my knowledge, would not support anything that would be divisive or anything to be hurtful or harmful or questionable for your children.
So my wife and I have a large family. We have 15 kids and 11 grandkids. We've adopted a lot of children. God's blessed us in the most amazing way. At the karate school, we have close to 200 kids. I'm very close to all of my students. When all the talk about CRT, BLM started coming up, all I saw that as is a means of division, right? Dividing people and removing the common decency for humanity and how God created us, and just bringing in a ton of poison and division. Kids do not look at us the same way that we do. Okay? My karate babies, I call them my karate babies at the karate school. When they see Mr. Danny, my student base is mostly white. When they see Mr. Danny, that's what they see. They understand there's a man who loves me, who will fight for me, and who will die for me. That's what they know. It's my job to make sure as a father figure that I keep them protected from this nonsense and this mess. Make no mistake about it, it will try to come in. It's our job as parents and grandparents to make sure that it does not have a leeway, a way to come in there. Okay? I've had people look at me and say, well, how in the world could you not support BLM? I will not. Okay? I'm a godly man. I'll never support an organization, first of all, that don't even like me. Right? What do you mean? Well, if you go to their website, they'll make you understand, first and foremost, they don't support family. They want to destroy the nuclear family as you and I know it. So what God created, they want to put an end to it. They only support mothers and children. So that means men, you get nothing. Right? So, there's a guy I listen to on YouTube, and he, when he talk about BLM, he says CBLM. What that means is certain Black Lives Matter. Not all Black Lives Matter. Okay? I make sure that our children and our grandchildren, our karate babies understand, learn how to love people and meet people where they're at. God created us for amazing reasons. We have incredible value. We have amazing value. If we don't get back to teaching these kids to understand their value and realize that when they go to school, they're supposed to be learning education, math, right? History. Right? Why are we bringing in things that would cause division at such tender young ages? They don't process things the same way. So for me personally, I'm just letting you know as a candidate, I'm completely against that. And I'm in agreement with you guys because I think it's poison when you bring that into a system of a bunch of kids who are at the elementary level. And you're not only teaching them, about race and racism. I've experienced racism in the worst possible ways. Okay? Not anymore. And I never thought as a black man in America, I'd be living during a time where I'd run into another black person who could look at me and say, I've never experienced racism. But guess what? That's where we live right now. So for all the nonsense being talked about in this great country, saying that we live in a racist country, anybody ever thought to ask, if this country was so bad, why do so many people from all over the world risk everything to be right here? Because it's the greatest country in the world, that's why.
Just one thing to add. What we need to be, the children are fine. North Carolina is losing more teachers in that profession than any other profession. There's more teachers walking out the door. And is that part of what Mr. Anton just talked about? Yes, that's part of it. Teachers, if you don't have teachers, what's the next step? I mean, that's where we try to take care of our teachers. We're the only county in the far west that gives a supplement to our teachers. I think we employ about 28 teachers through your county tax dollars that the state should pick up, Kevin. But that's how many we employ, but we're losing teachers at an alarming rate. Younger teachers, the average length of stay for a teacher is less than 5 years.
So as we lose teachers, here's my solution to that. Raise the next generation to understand it's their responsibility to step into those positions.
That's right.
We've released that way too much. I spend every day of my life cleaning up mess that people have left behind in these kids' lives all day long. It's our job. It's our duty to raise up another generation who's going to come up and stop this nonsense. Because if we are losing teachers at an alarming rate, well, guess what? We still have a say in that. It's still possible. I'm an optimist. I love to understand all the possibilities of what God can do. I spend my days raising these kids to understand, you know what? You're the next generation, and my ceiling better be your floor. That means don't try to reinvent the wheel. Wherever I stop, you pick it up right from there, and you do way more than I could have ever done in my lifetime.
Next question. Time to eat again.
I got a question. This is across the board. What can we do from the ground root to help the problems, to keep what happened here, what happened in Texas, violence and shootings and stuff, to keep our children safe?
Well, the only thing we've done as a county and working with the school board is try to make our school, we have an SRO in every school, which I think we're the only county maybe in the state that does have a school resource officer in every school. That's number one. At the high school, we put up extra protections and an extra SRO. So I don't know if we can ever prevent somebody from coming in to this building right now. I don't know how much security you'd have to have. But that's one of the main things we've talked about in the new high school is security, more security. We just improved the security at Macon Middle School. We improved the security at Nantahala when we renovated Nantahala. It is important. It's very important. When your child goes to school, it should be in a safe environment. We know that.
You use the term, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I'm done.
Use the term grassroots. And I think you nail it there. And I go one, what Danny's talking about, reaching out to these young people. And there's a lot of young people out there that are lost. I mean, we have so many things coming at them from social media, trying to keep up with the Joneses, and they think everybody else is having all the fun. And they're not. It's a big lie. So what do we do as a community? What do we do as parents is, like I think the school board folks said down there, is you talk to your kids as often as possible. You process these things in life. And if you see a kid whose parents are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, that's our job as a community. Try to step in and just connect with that kid. Just let them know that we care about them. If you look at every one of these young men, and they were all men that went out and did these horrible things, if somebody could have just stepped in their path and talked to them. I hear constantly about the mental health in our country and how bad shape it's in. And I mentioned the other day to our Rotary Club, I said, one thing you can do is get off your phone, get out of your comfort zone, and connect with your neighbor. Pick up the phone and call somebody. That's the grassroots effort. We can spend billions of dollars trying to fix this, but until we connect as a community and you reach out to those people, I think you're in the same boat. So
I gotta say, it's a community issue. Okay, my wife and I years ago, God put it on our hearts to understand what it means to parent a parentless generation. There was a time where we understood it took a village. Now it's like every man for themselves. We as a community can turn that around. Okay, we've started that at the karate school. The parents and the grandparents that are there, they understand. We partner with you 100%. You need something, my phone rings, we're coming running. Because it's our job to help raise the next generation, not just to give and, get them to be entitled, like raise them. Let's teach them correctly. And if they have more people that are willing to listen, like you said, we live in a time where we spend more time on a device than we do with human interaction. The kids at the karate school, their favorite time during the day is family time, where we sit down and I just ask a question or I just let them fire off at me. And we just sit down and talk. And we'll talk for an hour, and if I stop it there, they're wanting to throw me out the window like, what do you mean we're not talking anymore? Right? They are craving that because they want that interaction. So I agree, it does take a village. And if we as a community grab a hold of that, we get to change the world as a result of it. We don't have to wait on the government to do it. Okay? We're talking about safety. We're under administration who finds it more important to hire 87,000 IRS agents than to put people in place that are going to help these kids. Yeah. That's how backwards our priorities have gotten in this country. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. This is where we're at in Macon County. We've got 89 kids in protective custody. About 2,600 from Haywood West. No foster homes. There's one level 3 foster home. If you don't understand what levels are, just ask me after the meeting. But that's where we're at. It's not everybody has a family to sit down to. And out of those kids, there's probably another same amount that needs to be in protective custody. We got in foster homes all over this state. And if you ever want to decide about if you want to really help become a foster parent, that's easy for me to say. I'm not one. If you sit around and look at these 12 and 13, 14-year-old kids that need a foster home, but when you look at what that child's been through and where it came from, it's a rude awakening. We deal with them on a regular basis, and it's amazing how many we've seen signed over to the ward of the state. Just like signing a receipt for anything, like buying at the convenience store, and they take it to the ward of the state. So it would be great if that's the reason that teacher is so important. The first job as a teacher now, the teacher's about 4th on the list. They're a counselor, they're a nurse, they're everything, and then they're a teacher. Because that's the only stability a lot of these kids get.
Well, grassroots, back to that, is that point of being in the classroom. Assistant teachers are not like we had growing up when we had assistants. That number is not there. So volunteer in your school systems or spread the word. That's needed. Those extra eyes. Who is that kid on the fringe who's getting picked on and bullied and ignored? Or how do we help that child not be so angry? And then what happens at home? And then, fast forward, one of the key points the architect impressed on me about Franklin High School was the just gross insecurity issue. Gross. 100 exits, insecure, multiple buildings, lots of points of entry. We didn't think about these things when we built these schools, and that was like number 1 on his list. If you haven't seen that, please watch it. You guys are not thinking about a secure building in this particular place. And parents know that. We know that. We send our kids there and think, okay, well, I hope this is a great day for everybody, right? And I just press on mine to be conscious of those friends that are needing an extra hand. And thanks to Danny and Marion, so many people in our communities that are doing just that. But being in the classroom and putting eyes on it. So grassroots for me is that volunteer level.
Let me say one about 3 institutions. As the principal of Franklin High School, worked with a lot of parents who had children that were in trouble. And they would come in and say, I don't know what we're doing wrong, but my child is leaving. And if you're there a while with them, talking to them, you will see that the home is in really bad shape. You'll see a lost spiritual compass. There's not a spiritual compass. Then there's education that child's losing. That child is gone. Now, if you can rescue the home and you can rescue the spiritual compass, you know what? It'll make it. But when you lose 2 out of those 3, these institutions are, what we're all talking about here, are really in harm's way.
I read something the other day on Facebook. Somebody posted that said, please pray for our schools. Why we took prayer out of schools. The farther we get away from Christianity, the worse it's going to get.
That's right. Amen.
You know, how do you say pray for our schools, but yet you are condemned? We're not teaching these kids morals and how we're supposed to act as we go through. Guys, my dad died when I was 8 years old. So basically, I come through and had a few people to lean on and everything else. But I made it by the grace of God. So that's number 1. Number 2, just like Madison County, they're putting AR-15s in every one of their schools to protect their kids. Now, number 3, what goes around a prison or a jail or a big corporation, a big corporate office? They have one point of entry, one point of exit. They have a guard at that, and they have a fence all the way around the perimeter of that. I've questioned why we don't do that at our schools. We talk about Franklin High School. The architect said there was 100 entry points at Franklin High School. Well, yes, that's true. But can we not reduce those point of entries? The new school system we're talking about, or the new building, it's going to be one building, 3 stories high. Looks like a beautiful structure and everything else. But that's what we're doing and why we're doing that school. One building, 3 stories under one roof to stop the point of entries that we have now. And so I've questioned why we don't have fences around Highland School. You go in between the gym and the elementary wing. The entries there, the kids walk out of the building to the gym all day long. There's absolutely nothing there to protect those kids. If somebody wanted to cause harm in the elementary wing, they walk through that door, and how many of our kids would they kill before somebody could come help them? It's sad that we're at a point in our society that we have to deal with this, but at the same time, the more that we get away from God as a society, the worse it's going to get.
What I would add is the words of the great master Yoda, that faith leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. And we have a lot of scared kids. Not just, I'm a little anxious about school starting, but terrified. And so we need to be there for our kids like Anton's there for his kids. Because there's an inverse relationship between supportive adults in a kid's life and destructive behavior. That means if a young person has 5, just 5 supportive adults in his or her life, then the chances of this kid getting involved in major destructive behavior plummets. So I want to share with you the story of Miss Anita. Miss Anita was the lunch lady at the school. And so each day the kids go through their little trays, and Miss Anita greets them by name and says, "Hello, Karen. Hope you have a good day today. Enjoy your lunch." She greeted every single kid. She is a supportive adult. And our teachers are supportive adults. Our teachers are heroes. HERO stands for helping everyone respect others. And so we need to respect our teachers because they are helping our kids. And we need to help our kids too by being the supportive adults in their lives. Thank you. Let's get cracking and vote for McCracken.
Okay, next question. This is for the senators. Medicaid expansion would have passed if Republicans had not put in poison pill provisions like work. requirements. Will you remove the provisions keeping the legislation from passing?
Well, that wasn't in there. I'm not where the information came from. But I worked on that bill. I did the press conference where we said we were going to introduce the bill. If you have a work requirement or whatever you have in it, if it's something that doesn't make it in court, you still have Medicaid expansion. So I'm very much for Medicaid expansion. I've led the charge down there. It's kind of ironic. When I was over in the House, it passed the House. I was co-sponsor of the bill over there. Everybody in North Carolina, every media source would tell you the North Carolina Senate will not pass Medicaid expansion. 2 years ago, will not pass. And I've said this publicly. I've done dozens of interviews and said the same thing. I met with Phil Berger when he was trying to talk me into running for Senate, and I said, no, I'm going to stay in the House. I don't want to come to the Senate. He said, we need you over there. And I said, we need to pass Medicaid expansion. And he sat there very quietly and he said, I believe you're right. He said, with transformation, I think we can do it. He said, will you help me do it? And I did. And so I don't know what other poison pills you're talking about, but
that was just the question.
Medicaid expansion is good. I can give you a 30-minute dissertation on why we need to pass Medicaid expansion yesterday, and we'll do it. It's probably in February, but and it's bipartisan. I mean, people on both sides of the aisle. There was no disagreement. We had literally two no votes in the Senate. Everybody else voted yes for the bill that was there. So if there were poison pills in it, I'm not sure they weren't very poison. It didn't keep it from passing. It passed with two no votes.
But they would not bring it to the floor in the House.
They the follow-up. I gotta be careful.
Be careful, Kelly.
Never mind, I'll pass.
So what I would build on what you're saying is that, as you said, it's already passed the Senate, and there's no reason it should not pass the House because it's budget neutral. It's budget neutral, folks. That means it doesn't cost the taxpayers. There's no reason for it not to pass. People are dying. People need health care. Insulin is crazy expensive, so we need for it to pass. So if the House doesn't do their job and it comes back to Senate, then I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that it passes again so that we can get Medicaid expansion.
It would benefit about 2,800 today, about 2,800 Maconians.
Just one quick follow-up. If you back up almost 2 years ago, the discussion wasn't quite there about we can pass Medicaid expansion. There were too many folks on my side of the aisle that were just no. They just felt like they couldn't support it. They couldn't tell you why, but they said they couldn't support it. So Jim Bergen and I wrote the postpartum bill, which gave mothers 12 months insurance coverage after birth of the child, and that is in force now. And that was my bill, and it went into the last year's budget. And if any of y'all are here and are conservatives and have questions about Medicaid expansion, I would be really happy. I can tell you it's a bipartisan effort. We all agree. We all looked at it. It will cost taxpayers of North Carolina nothing, zero, because we asked for the hospitals, the providers to pay 10%. They're getting zero now, right? And the federal government's paying 90%, plus the federal government's thrown in a $1.5 billion with a B dollar bonus, if you would, to help get it cranked up. So it's an absolute no-brainer. And if you live in Western, and just to tell you the truth, the real push for this came from Western North Carolina. Started in Graham County with their commissioners, and they sent me a petition. Then I got one from Clay, got one from Cherokee, got one from Macon, and I took those to our Senate leadership. Look here, I got the reddest district in the state, and they're for Medicaid expansion. So with that happening, if there's a poison pill in it, I'll take it out. But Medicaid expansion will pass early next year. End of story.
Okay, this is for any commissioner. What is the latest on Nantahala Library?
Mr. Higdon, would you like to answer that question?
The latest is the architect, we tried to find, we had an architect selected. Anytime you do anything over X amount of dollars by the state rules, you have to employ and put out for RFQ, request for quotations from an architect. We've had one, and he, at the last minute, said no. He didn't have time. We went through 4 more that said no. The latest one, I don't know if they've got, I think they got that much work, I guess, but he said he would notify the county manager hopefully within the next 2 weeks. And we're about out of architects that would even look at it. So that's where we're at right now. It's sort of in the, I've never been supportive, as a matter of fact, of moving the library. Mr. Higdon knows that very well. I think the library should be right here. We have plenty of room to take this and have a marshmallow roast to this place and build the library right here. We've got plenty of room. At one time, we had an agreement worked out to swap, to move it to what is now Industrial Arts. And had one school board member that objected to that. So that pretty much we was going to renovate that section of the school with plenty of parking and security issues. That's been another issue with this place, but we think it can be handled realistically. But they did buy the property 4 miles down the road that I don't think will benefit this school hardly at all. And so it's been a lot of discussions back and forth about the library, but that's where we're at now. They do have a plan to put community building, which meets a few times a year, which that library is open every day. And we're really worried about security reasons. We still don't have the broadband thing worked out. We started out with a bid of $300 grand to put the broadband, which we have it right there. And so that was another reason. We now think that we've been working with Boston West to try to get that reduced. We set a budget around $500,000 to renovate that. The state came in and did the paving. We drilled the well, make sure we had water. The septic is a convoluted. It goes on other property, which is not. We have an easement to them for the septic. Whereas here we have a treatment plant. So that's where we're at today with that. We're sort of waiting on to get the RFQ back, and hopefully we can find somebody that'll give us one. An architect that'll give us one. So that's where we're at. But when you're going to spend that amount of money, by law, we have no choice. We have to go out and put it for RFQ. So that's where we're at.
So, are you not allowed to use a general contractor?
You have to have an architect.
Sir?
You can use a general contractor, but you got to have an architect.
Why?
That's the law.
Let me interrupt you, Jenny. We need written questions. We don't want to open it up to the audience or we'll be here all night. So let's stick with the written questions.
Does anybody else want to address that question?
Good. Moving on, Peggy.
Next.
Okay, next question. I guess this is for the commissioners. Please briefly explain how you would help control proposed new taxes or increases to existing taxes.
Read that again.
Please briefly explain how you would help control proposed new taxes or increases to existing taxes.
Well, I would say let's look at what we have going on right now in building a new school for Franklin High School. We have an opportunity to vote on the quarter-cent sales tax increase that will not just affect Macon County residents. We have thousands upon thousands of visitors that come to our county every year, and a lot of them just pass through our county on 441 to Cherokee or Swain County and other parts of the Western North Carolina. That's about $2 million a year, just under, that we can raise that doesn't impact the rest of us here every day. I mean, we are going to pay a little more. I kind of did an estimate, and it could be anywhere from $200 to $400, depending upon how much money you spend outside your gas and groceries, buying clothes or other items. And also, all the surrounding counties around us, they already take advantage of that. So we don't have to raise ad valorem tax, and we get other people to pay for our schools. Because they're going to want us to have good schools because they like to visit us, and they're going to want well-educated kids running our businesses and running this community. So that's number one. Number two is you look at ad valorem tax and you look at this new school that we're trying to build and you say, what can we afford? What can we put on the people of Macon County? We may not be able to build a $118 million school. We may not be able to afford it, but what can we afford? We can afford something. And then you adjust the ad valorem tax ever so slightly if you need to in order to meet the needs of this new school. But I just think you have to proceed cautiously. You may have to increase them slightly, but I think you have to do it incrementally and not all at one time.
But let me just add to what you said in a positive way. Your quarter-cent sales tax will bring in, it's estimated at $2 million annually that will come to our coffers, and that'll be ours to use, let's say within the capital outlay monies that we don't have. Then that monies will allow us not to have to rely so much on the ad valorem. So it's really, if this thing goes through and you don't have the quarter-cent sales tax, you've got more monies that's in your ad valorem it's going to cost you. So the quarter-cent sales tax will help out a lot in reducing the tax that it would take to build the whole school.
Here's what's really going to happen. So you just heard me mention about how we went almost 40-some-odd% more that the values in Macon County went from 7-point-something billion to almost 13 billion. So what you're going to see, you'll hear a term a lot called revenue neutral. So what that means is your values are going to go up wherever your house is in Macon County. Your tax bill will probably come down, but you're going to pay more taxes because of the value of your property. That's based on the Machinery Act of North Carolina. And that is it's an old antiquated, which needs to be redone. Kevin will certainly be the first to agree to that. But that's what it's based on. And in North Carolina, it's based on whatever they write the check for. If you were seeing houses now still, the county's got appraised at $300,000, they're selling for $600,000. When you put a house up for sale for $250,000, that's the starting bidding price. So what you're going to see is the value of your property is going to be raised just because of the true sales in the county and the price they're paying. If your neighbor, in your neighborhood especially, not everywhere, but for most places, especially where Jerry comes from in Highlands, oh my goodness. So that's, and as far as the ad valorem, we still have one of the lowest tax rates in the state. And we think we've been pretty good stewards of your money, not our money, your money. We do have a strong fund balance. We keep our debt service where we can take care of it. We've renovated 3 schools, built 2 new schools over the past 12, 14 years. So we think we've been pretty good stewards of the money. The reason we built the schools when we did, and Kevin will tell you, in 2008, because in the middle of a recession, it was the perfect time to build a school. We built it for fractions of a dollar on the square foot, cost what it cost you today. So we're hoping that the tax bill, when the appraisals come out and everything's said and done, we got those last Tuesday night, and it's going to be an interesting. When you get your tax bill, you done gotten that, I think, for this previous year. Next year is going to be the telltale sign. And I think it's going to be up to the Board of Commissioners to make sure we remain at that revenue neutral and not putting more burden on we have to. That's the reason I agree with Jerry. This quarter-cent sales tax will save us tons of money and make it a more fair, if there's such thing as a fair tax. But through it all, we've tried to maintain a low tax rate, and I think we've managed to do so.
Well, my response to the quarter-cent sales tax will be this: it's exactly where it needs to be on a referendum. You, the people, will vote on that.
Amen.
Okay? As your representative for District 1 Macon County Commissioner, I will get all the facts. We will know the true cost. We will know the true needs and how we're going to pay for it. The Bible teaches us that only a fool would build something, not knowing how much it's going to cost and how you're going to pay for it. Folks, we don't know all the details. I'm in the dark. All I know is when we had that meeting with the school board and the county commissioners, The finance guy said 20 years, 5% interest. We're gonna borrow $158 million. I'm assuming that addition, no, there was a additional amount of money that we already are in debt for schools, $30 million or $40 million, whatever it is. It's gonna take 20 years to pay for it, 5% interest, and we are going to have to raise the millage rate 8 to 10.
Sure.
That's what the finance guy said. Now, folks, we're already at 40. Now, we're going to talk about this revenue neutral stuff. My mind in revenue neutral means I paid $1,000 this year on my taxes. Next year, I'm going to pay $1,000. That's not the way it works. We spend, we tax. We tax more, we spend more. Folks, we have to get conservative leaders and work through this process. There are too many people in our county. I'm not saying I'm against the school or for the school. All I'm saying is, I want to know the true needs. I want to know all the details. I want to know exactly what it's going to cost, exactly what we're going to have to pay for it, and present it to you, the people, and say, give me your praises for this, and by golly, we're going to build it. That's the way that I will go. In District 1, Macon County Commissioner, I will represent the people.
You know, my response will be pretty short. You know, for the quarter-cent sales tax, I mean, the people are going to vote on that. That's the reason why it's on the referendum, right? And the people will dictate whether or not that's going to go through. It has nothing to do with my opinion or anybody's opinion up here. It has everything to do with all the citizens as a whole. And secondly, for me, I'm all about never making decisions without having all the information necessary, especially in a situation like this where it has to do with not just my money, but yours as well. That'd be very irresponsible of me to make a lot of decisions with your tax-paying dollars, and I don't have all the information. Because at that point, that's how we end up in a way worse situation, way more debt, unnecessary reckless spending, and I'm not for that. I'm very conservative of what I do, and I want to make sure that if I'm going to be responsible over your tax dollars, make sure that you have something to show, we have something to show for all this tax money that you guys are paying. You know, I said earlier this year at a forum, somebody asked me about how I felt about raising taxes. Well, what are we doing with what you've already paid? I want to make sure you understand first and foremost where your tax dollars are going, what's worth it and what's not, and then we go from there. Take a business approach to it because it is a business deal.
I have to go back to Jerry's point, though. I think it's so important that we understand what a quarter of a cent,
Yes.
a penny, quarter of a penny tax that you already pay. The state rounds it to 7%. That quarter of a cent goes to Raleigh on purchases up to like $10. You're giving it away. That state could stay in Macon County. Every surrounding county is using that money locally. Macon County has chosen not to pass that and to send it to Raleigh, okay? Quarter of a cent. So if you spend $100, you're putting a quarter in a jar for your schools. That's all it is. That's the money, that's on people buying a bag of chips, and you're paying it as you drive through every other county when you stop and buy a Coke and a bag of chips. They take that quarter cent and put it locally to Sheriff's Department, Public Health, Public Services, school system. So it's important, I totally agree with Danny. The folks are going to vote on this, but I have these questions people ask me. It's clearly that folks don't totally understand what this is. This is money we already collect, and we are not using it locally. We round to 7% and we send it to Raleigh. Okay, and so really do some reading and hard thought about why would we do that? Swain doesn't, Graham doesn't, Clay doesn't, Jackson doesn't. So just be really informed when you vote on what that means. That's all my, it's a very personal decision for you.
But I think as leaders, I have to tell you, I support it. I think it's a good idea. I want you to vote yes.
It's a no-brainer.
I want you to vote for it. And I would hope everybody up here would say one way or the other what they want you to do, because I think I've looked at the school building and there are details there. I mean, we're not going to get the true details until we send everything out for bid. what's the grading bid gonna be, what's the framing bid, who's gonna do the roofing. You're never gonna get the true numbers till that's done. 118 million is an estimate, and it's got a lot of contingency in there. So let's keep working, and I don't disagree with John or Danny either, that we've gotta keep working and we gotta hold the feet to the fire of the people who are gonna be doing the work and how much we're gonna pay them. So, but I do think you have to say, do you support the quarter-cent sales tax or not? I do. I think it's a good idea. I was a small business owner. I did thousands of transactions, you know, and worked hard to bring in that sales tax money. Let's keep a little bit of it and pay the bill, and we'll pay a little bit less, because we're going to need that new school one way or the other, whether we need it in 2 years or 5 years. We got to keep moving forward in Macon County, and we got to do it for these young people here.
Or the new sheriff's car, or the new,
Right.
It's right, like really think about that for all of your public entities. We're talking about the schools because we mentioned that in the program, but. Okay.
Let me just go back to this little $0.25. That don't mean a lot to me. I'm not poor mouthing up here, okay? I can pay that $0.25, but there's a lot of folks out here, just like my mother. I'll go back to my mother. 8 months ago, my mother was $200 just from survival. So my brother, sister, and I, we're going to take care of our mother. Now with inflation, my mother is $500 shy of just survival. My mother can't pay. I don't care if it's a tenth of a cent. There's a lot of folks in this county. My mother is one of the fortunate ones that she has kids that can't afford to take care of that lady. Now, you want to target the people that you want to target, do like Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Myrtle Beach, all the tourist towns, and put a tax on these people coming and staying in there where they're the only ones paying the tax. If you want that, because a 1/4% sales tax is a direct tax increase to the citizens of Macon County 365 days a year. Every day you spend money in this county, you're going to pay more in taxes. And then you're going to pay more in property taxes. And then you're going to pay more in all these taxes. Folks, thank God that I'm healthy enough to keep working. And I feel bad for you people that can't. And you're sitting here depending on your leaders to protect you, because I promise you one thing. I have you people at heart. In the center of my campaign in the primary, the people on the fixed income is at the center of my heart. Yes, my kids. Yes, I want the best for my kids. I want the safest place. I love Macon County. And I want the best for Macon County. But there is a cost. Okay? So, the sales tax referendum is exactly where it should be, and yes, you're correct. It will produce $2 million projected to go in the general fund of Macon County checkbook, okay? It cannot be earmarked for the school. That's, Kevin?
But it will help us pay for it. But it will help us pay for it.
That's correct. It's going to make a difference whether it's going to be an 8-penny millage rate or a 10.
Right, it'll help us pay for it.
So you might as well just tax the people and forget about the sales tax.
Well, you are, either way, but hopefully less one way.
There was a little thing we've not talked about that I was fortunate enough to be involved. I'm an unlimited general contractor in the state of North Carolina, and I got to be involved in the construction of the schools. There's a thing called value engineering. When we built MVI school, not necessarily because of me, we had a group, but we'd go over almost everything. The school board had representatives, we had representatives of commission, and through value engineering, we literally saved millions of dollars during the construction of that school. And we'll do the same thing at the high school.
I'm sorry.
It's time to go?
No, I'm so sorry. I thought you were finished, but you're value engineering.
I'm good. I'm ready.
Ready to get.
I just want to make a request moving forward. The school board has no taxing authority.
Speak up the microphone.
But as... I'm sorry, I can't yell loud enough. So, I come with a request mostly as a parent of children in the school. The value engineering was a term that I heard the first time at the last school board meeting in July, when David Leitner was coming up making a request for ovens in NBI, which is a relatively new school that were already needing to be replaced. So I just really want to implore you, as you are making decisions on how to move forward with your budgeting, that you are putting the money where it needs to be, which is with our students and our teachers, because that ends up costing us more in the long run, and we're just kind of adding on to it over the years. So I just, as a parent, please, as you're moving forward with some of these things, don't cut corners just to get it done. Let's do it right.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, last question. I don't know if this is for the commissioners or the senators. Why do we need an excise tax on cigars?
That would be the senators.
I'll answer that. I have no idea what you're saying.
I thought we'd end on a comical note.
Amen.
Thank you. Wearing on, why don't we do the closing statements? And if you don't need the 3 minutes.
1 minute. Let's all agree to 1 minute, seriously. Deal.
We gotta go. We'll start at this end.
How many minutes?
1.
1 minute, Carol. Thank you.
Okay. Be quick. Some personal thoughts I have is I am very concerned about finishing this high school. I think that our kids need to have it in order to be an equal with other kids and getting the same type of sound basic education program as other children in the state of North Carolina. I'm also interested in trying to make sure that our curriculum is appropriate. One of the things I have to offer is having served on committees working through the Department of Public Instruction. Years when I did work for DPI, I did write their grants. And I write a lot of grants for the school system that have brought in millions of dollars that you can see in the facilities we have and in the programs we have now. So with that, that's what I have to offer on my skills to do that. Millions.
Good job, Carol. You got to talk to everybody this last time.
Well, thanks guys for your time this evening. We have a lot of work to do, and as I said earlier, I am a conservative businessman. I think a lot about different things, different scenarios and everything else. I believe that the power is in you as the people to tell your leaders how we move forward. But the only way you can do that is by being informed. And there's a lot of information that has not been exposed that we have no idea. We're tossing numbers around. I'm not going to tell you I'm for it or against the school because I don't know a lot about this. The capital improvement projects that Macon County has planned for the future. We're talking about $250 million in 20 years, folks. And I'll just tell you, I went to school all through Franklin. I remember my teachers. I don't remember the school. Okay? Thank you. John Sherrill, District 1 County Commissioner.
Good job, John.
Thank you guys for hosting this evening. It was wonderful, and this is my first venture into the world of politics, so I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. This is a learning experience, and I love being a student, and I guess that's why I never made a teacher like the rest of my family, because I just want to keep learning. So I want to listen, I want to learn, and I'm willing to do the work, and I just thank you so much for hosting us.
Snacks were 10 out of 10. Thank you so much.
Yes.
The food was great. I really appreciate coming over. The cohorts running that I'm running against in District 2 are not here. So Stephanie Laskin in District 2. That crew is not present for, I'm sure, really important reasons. But Thank you, seriously, thank you so much, and I just appreciate the time that we had.
I think after 16 years, I've probably got a pretty good record. You can go back and look at it. I hope you would find that I've always been supportive of the schools, and certainly of mental health, substance abuse, and a lot of other things. We got a dialysis center in Macon County. Everybody said we couldn't get one. We got one. So there's a lot of needs. There's a lot of things. We're a county that leads the West, and we do. And we appreciate the folks in Nantahala. I look forward to serving you 4 more years as your county commissioner. I'll do the best I can as I have in the past. We have been, always try to be transparent. My door is certainly open. My number's in the phone book, and you can find me. You can't find Kel, he's a problem. But you can find the county commissioner, and they do. And so I look forward to serving you 4 more years, and I'd ask for your support. We always appreciate Nantahala and the job they do over here. I've never been, of course, I don't represent, Bobby Coggins represented y'all for many years. Paul Higdon represents you now on the board. And so you've had 2 representatives that had the community at heart. And so we look forward to serving you 4 more years.
My name is Gary Shields, and I'm requesting your vote for a 3rd term. I'm on the committee for the schools, and it's in a phased process. Late October will be our next open meeting that we'll have at the Fine Arts Center. And let me just leave this little thought with you. We did the renovation evaluation. We looked at the academics, we looked at the athletics, we looked at safety. But there's one thing we looked at on Franklin High School campus. It is not ADA certified anywhere. You come to Franklin High School tomorrow, I'll put you in a wheelchair, see if you can maneuver. I'll put you in a roller, see if you can move. That campus cannot be ADA certified. It has to have a new building on a new campus. It won't work.
Thank you guys very much for having us tonight. I just wanted to say, you probably won't remember anything that we've said tonight. I've done this for a long time, but you'll remember how you felt. I just want to say something. I appreciate everybody sitting up here, including Karen, that's running for the same seat I am. And I mean that, truly. It takes a lot to sit up front and let people ask you questions. And so you guys are all to be commended for doing that. I'm kind of numb to it, so it doesn't bother me. But anyway, I love serving you. I love serving this community. I have leveraged my experience as a school board member, county commissioner, and now in the General Assembly. I've leveraged that experience to bring back more money to Western North Carolina than has ever been brought back, ever, including this community. I got $1.5 million a year in Macon County's budget. These commissioners will tell you, so Nantahala School can stay open. If not, you're closing this down, kids are going to Andrews, and that's not right. So I've stood up, I leveraged my experience, and I'll continue to do that for the North Carolina Senate. Kevin Corbin, good to be here. Thank you.
Danny, Antoine, I am really grateful for all of you just taking the time out of your schedules. I know that's a lot sometimes. Thank you so much for listening to us. And I just want to say for every one of the candidates here, I pray for everybody, because it is not a simple thing to get up here to do this. It's not a simple thing to just even try to run for this. I'm just proud of everybody up here doing that, and I just want you to know I sincerely do pray for each one of us here, because it does. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of our families, but it's worth it. It's worth fighting for. The community's worth fighting for. So I thank you guys. I've spoken to a lot of you. We've talked a lot about wanting change. I pray to be the change that you're looking for if you'll vote me in. So have a good night.
Go Danny.
90% of success is showing up, and you all have shown up tonight. But not only that, you have stayed. And if you give me the chance, I will show up for you. So go to my website, votemccracken.com. You can check out where I stand on the issues, watch some inspirational videos, and I've got some sunflower seeds so you can get cracking and vote for McCracken.
All right. Thank you for having us tonight. It's been awesome. It's my first experience running for office as well. And I had another first experience tonight as well. I had a quail egg. Never had a quail egg before, and it was pretty good. So thank you. Jerry Moore, running as an unaffiliated candidate for District 1 County Commissioner. I'm a pragmatic problem solver, and I will be your advocate in Macon County. So remember that. Jerry Moore from Macon County.
Thanks for the food. Tom, can I have just a second?
Yes.
We have a local Frontier Manager number that you can call with your complaints. It's 828-360-2873.
What's the name?
It's local Frontier Manager. I don't have a name.
We'll put it on our Facebook page.
There you go.
Do we know a number exactly how many homes are without phone service?
I don't know.
No, we don't have
I mean, I think that would be a great number to have to write to the powers to be, Consumer Affairs, Raleigh, and give them that number. I'd be happy to write a letter.
Thank you very much for
Hey, good luck. It's a pleasure meeting you too. So, thank you.